What's up? Today we're going to talk about the key components and things that I found most useful from the book Eat That Frog, 21 Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less Time by Brian Tracy. Now first, let's go over the obvious, the strange title, Eat That Frog. This basically just means if you have a really hard or demanding task to do, this resembles your frog, a frog that you have to eat, which is something that you most often don't want to do. I don't know, a few people probably want to eat frogs, but most people don't want to eat the frog. Now, if there is a day where you have to eat a frog, it's probably the worst and most disgusting thing that you have to do that day. So if you do it first thing in the morning and it's already done, you can go through that day knowing the worst thing is already done. So your frog is the biggest, most important task, the one where you're most likely to procrastinate on. That's why you should eat it first thing in the morning. Now then you have two rules about eating frogs. If you have two or more frogs, eat the ugliest one first. And the second rule, if you have to eat a live frog at all, it doesn't pay to sit and look at it for very long. Now that means take action immediately. Many people confuse activity with accomplishment, meaning sitting in meetings, planning things out for very long and not getting to actually doing it. Taking action and really doing something is the important thing. That's why you should develop habits of success. The next things in this book basically were like the tasks from getting things done, writing lists, creating deadlines, take action steps, writing lists using present tense, then circle the most important things. So you basically have these little exercises in the book which you should do while reading, which I didn't do because my lists and to-do things are already up to date because I already have systems in place like this. An important thing is to plan, and while you shouldn't procrastinate too long with planning and take immediate action, you should still plan your days in advance. Herefore, you have the 6P formula. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Now next, this book recommends something that I don't agree with because I did it in the past because of other books and it was just a total mess. It talks about having a big master list, then a monthly list, a weekly list, and a daily list. And I think that's just a little too much. Again, I've had a list system like this in place for a couple of months, but once your tasks exceed 10 per day, it just gets really confusing having stuff on so many lists, and you just waste too many hours with looking up which task is on which list and when to do it. It's just not a system for me. Maybe for you, but not for me. Also, some people prefer lists on paper and others digital. I personally use a mix of these because having it just on paper means it's not that easy to carry around. Having it digital, I have it always with me and can always write something on it or check it once it's done. And also, and that's why I don't really know why they mostly recommended using paper lists, you should organize your tasks from most important to least important. And that's of course way easier if you have a digital list where you can just move it around. And when you have a list on paper and a more important task pops up, you have to rewrite your entire list or just make these notes, and then it gets really ugly and messy. So not that good for structuring the importance of tasks. Next, Brian Tracy talks about a rule that I didn't know before, which is the 10-90 rule. This one says that 10% of your time spent planning and organizing your work before you start working will save you as much as 90% in getting the job done once you started. Next up, some numbers that of course spoke to me, the 80-20 rule or Pareto principle. This one says that 20% of your actions result in 80% of your outcome. So 20% of your customers result in 80% of your sales, 20% of your products will result in 80% of your profits, and so on. That means if you have a list with 10 things on it, 2 of them are way more important than the 8 other ones. The important thing is that you are really good by picking out these 2 important tasks because most people spend their time doing mostly these unimportant 80% of tasks. So again, don't focus on activities, but on accomplishments. You often see people who are busy all day but accomplish very little because they're just doing the wrong things. Next up, the law of forced efficiency. Now there will never be enough time to do everything, but there will always be enough time to do the most important thing. Now the following pages in the book are more like for employed people. That's why it's not that interesting for me because it doesn't really apply to me, a little bit, but not that much because of course I'm self-employed. You have 3 questions for maximum productivity and they are, what are my highest value activities? That's a good question. Or put another way, what are the biggest frogs that you have to eat to make the greatest contribution to your organization, to your family, or to life in general? Next question, what can I and only I do that if done well will make a real difference? And the third and last question, what is the most valuable use of my time right now? In other words, what is my biggest frog of all at this moment? As Goethe said, the things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. The more accurate your answers will be to these questions, the easier it will be for you to set clear priorities and overcome procrastination. One of the most powerful words in time management is no. Say it politely, say it clearly so that there are no misunderstandings, but make it a part of your regular time management vocabulary. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, once was asked his secret of success. He replied, simple, I just say no to everything that is not absolutely vital to me at the moment. Next, we categorize items into A, B, C, and D. An A item is something that is very important and that you have to do. A B item is an item that you should do. A C task is something that would be nice if you do it, but there are no consequences if you don't do it. A D task is something that you can delegate to someone else. And an E task is something that you can eliminate without it making a difference. Now, if you have more than one A task, which are of course the most important tasks, you can mark them as always, starting from the most important one with A1, then A2, A3, and so on. Then we started the next chapter with a nice quote from Theodore Roosevelt. He said, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." Now, over the course of the book, especially in the second half, I found that very much of the statements and tips just repeated themselves. Like, it was just over and over, make list, circle the most important thing. What is the most important thing that I can do right now? So I'm not going to go over everything that doubled itself because it's just the same thing. I'm just going to cover the things that I found important. Like, for example, time management is a means to an end. The main reason to develop time management skills is to get things done faster so that you can spend more time with your loved ones, your family, free time, whatever it is, because your personal life most often brings you the most happiness in life. Next up, work all the time you work. Now that sounds like the obvious thing, but a lot of people don't really work when they work. They just, again, keep themselves busy and not really get the important things done. But this one means more that you should really get into a state of deep work, focus, turn other notifications off, close all the programs on your computer that could distract you with pop-up messages, don't check your emails every few minutes, and really dig yourself into the task that you have to do. For you to not get distracted, not just on your computer, but also on your workspace, create a comfortable and clean workspace. That is really important. If you have everything laying around, you can't focus on what you want to do. Tidy your workspace before you get to work so that nothing can distract you. Another nice quote I found in the book is from Wayne Gretzky, I hope I said that correctly, a hockey player who said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Then there was another saying about making individual action steps to complete your goal, which is, by the yard it's hard, but inch by inch anything's a cinch, which doesn't tell me anything because I'm not stupid and smart enough to use the metric system. I'm kidding. Well, I'm not kidding, I'm using it. Financial independence is achieved by saving a little money every month, year after year. Health and fitness are accomplished by just eating a little less, exercising a little more, day after day, month after month, year after year. The next tip is one that I use on a daily basis, and it's really, really great to overcome procrastination, especially if you're self-employed and no one is telling you what to do and you have to be your own boss. It's creating imaginary deadlines, because if you don't give yourself a deadline, your task just takes this long. But if you set yourself a deadline that you have to do it until this specific day, the amount of time you have is way shorter and you will still complete it in that time. Just think about back in school, or maybe you are still in school. If you have to do a presentation on a specific day, most often you think it's still weeks away, so you don't do it or just do very little on it, which basically means the work for the presentation takes weeks. But all of a sudden it's the day before, you haven't done anything and you have to do the presentation tomorrow. But suddenly you manage to do the whole presentation in one entire night, and it's still done the day after. Meaning, since you had just this short amount of time, you still managed to do it. So if you set yourself the deadline to do it 2 weeks before, you still would have done it in that 1 week, if that makes sense. Now, next we have some tips that I think, especially nowadays, a lot of people would disagree with, which is controlling your inner dialogue. Saying things like, I like myself, okay. But it also says in the book to keep yourself motivated and to overcome feelings of doubt and fear. Continually tell yourself, I can do it, which is still fine. But when people ask you how you are, always tell them, I feel terrific, no matter how you feel, which is, I get where he's going with it, but for some people, if they don't feel terrific and they still say, I feel terrific, it could lead to, I don't know, depression or something like that. Maybe you should be open with your feelings, and if you don't feel terrific and it's really, really bad, talk with someone and don't just say, I feel terrific, because that doesn't help anyone. Also not with procrastination. Next, we have the upsides of being optimistic. Optimists look for the good in every situation, so no matter what goes wrong, you're still optimistic that you can do it. Optimists always seek a valuable lesson in every setback or difficulty. So meaning, if I, for example, paid a lot of stuff for something to boost my business, paid a couple thousand for some ads and they didn't work. Being optimistic means not just having a sad face and being sad about it, but trying to learn from it and doing it better next time. And third, optimists always look for a solution to every problem. Instead of blaming or complaining, they are action-oriented. The next thing I actually found really funny, the title is Someone Will Tell You, because everything before that was about unplugging your devices and not getting distracted by notifications and stuff like that. People often ask Brian Tracy in seminars, but don't you have to stay plugged into technology to keep current with the news? And he tells them, if it's really important, someone will tell you. Many people unplug from the news, and surprisingly enough, they remain well informed about the most important subjects. Then with more repeating, again also have a clear digital workspace, plan your day in advance, use the salami slice technique for different action steps, make every minute count and also work if you're on a plane or in a train, where you want time to yourself, take your laptop and use the time to work. Kinda obvious, if it's possible. The next chapter started with a quote from Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, which I also did a book review / summary on. You can watch it by clicking right up here. And he said, start where you stand and work with whatever tools you may have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along. Getting into the flow, also talked about that already. Build up a sense of momentum, basically also already talked about that one, by staying focused, not getting distracted, and really deep work, deep focus on your important task without getting distracted. Because each time you get distracted, it takes several minutes to get back into your work. In fact, it has been estimated that the tendency to start and stop a task, to pick it up, put it down, and come back to it again, can increase the necessary time to complete the task as much as 500%. That's why if I'm shooting videos for my clients, they most often have one correction loop inclusive in the video package. And if they want several changes, even if each correction just takes 1 minute or even 30 seconds to complete, I ask them to write every change down in a small PDF or even just on WhatsApp where they can send it to me, so that I can do all of the changes in one go, send it over to them, and everyone is happy, and not just have a new message pop up, please change this one small thing that we just found out. I go to my computer, open up the project, it takes time to load. I try to get back into the project because of course I also have other clients, try to locate the spot where they want to change, do the change, export it, upload it, send it to them with a message. These small things like getting back into the project and then exiting back out of it, sending it to the client, take way more than the small change itself. Of course, who can blame the client? They think a small change just takes 30 seconds, which it does, but all the preparation, things before that, after that, add up to a lot of time. So of course, in this example, it's way more efficient to open everything up and do 50 changes in one go than to do 10 individual changes, but you have to open up the project each individual time. And to finish it off, I want to tell you a quote, which was of course also in this book, from Albert Hubbard, I also hope I said that name correctly, about self-discipline. He described self-discipline as the ability to make yourself do what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. That's it from this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and also consider subscribing right here for more videos just like this one. You can find a link to this book down below in the description. You can find more book reviews right here and the last book video right here. And I will hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.